I take a fighter's mentality into a lot of different aspects of my life. So sometimes it works out for me, sometimes it's not so good. You just can't let yourself sink too deep into that and let it eat you up, because it will.
If you're not moving forward in life, you're moving backwards. This is Ace and Jamie, and this is Breakpoint Podcast.
Our goal is to create and deliver content that evokes a change of spirit and heart, seeking out messages that will relate and inspire.
Stories and experiences of people and their breakpoint in life.
Little rough around the edges, completely unhinged, and wildly compassionate.
We bring you Breakpoint Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Ace and Jamie here. We have as our guest today, professional MMA fighter, Long Island business owner and Long Island native, an awesome dad to his daughter, of course, and a certified badass all around. We have Chris Wade on today's podcast. So welcome, Chris. Thanks for jumping on with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, man. So I guess we just want to jump into, obviously this is being recorded during, Corona. And we'll just kind of jump into how you're handling that. How's it impacted you, really, I
guess? To be honest, I'm starting to struggle with it. It's been so long now that all the small businesses that I'm associated with, that I have in my life, they've been closed down since about mid-March. So I've been going with it, and I've been trying to be the good soldier, but when you're healthy and 98% of your family's healthy and you're just kind of watching the news, it's hard for me sometimes to understand, like, all right, but I'm going to Target, or I'm headed here to Home Depot, and there's people, they're being safe, they have gloves and masks, and they're letting us in little by little, but why can't you do that with my store? Or why can't you do that with your store? Why can it only be Home Depot or a large place? So trying to be the good soldier, but I'm just starting to get a little frustrated with how long we've been closed down for sure.
Speaking of that, because I am curious, I like to understand the psychology behind, success, and being somebody who has had a lot of success in your life. I'm sure that there's a percentage of guys when they start a fight, that if the fight starts off bad, that they're in a bad place if it doesn't start off right, and to make a turnaround. So can you kind of relate this to that in any way?
Like, what's the psychology behind that, behind Chris Wade's mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I take a fighter's mentality into a lot of different aspects of my life. So sometimes it works out for me, sometimes it's not so good, but I've tried to use that here, because this does require us to be mentally strong for a long period of time. So I have used it, and it's been helping me. But like you were saying, there's a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different ways that people have been impacted by this. So I'm trying to be respectful at the same time, and I'm a fighter, so I'm more of a risk taker naturally, probably, than some other people are. So for me, you're talking to someone who's willing to go in a cage with another guy who's preparing to hurt you. I'm I'm also willing to kind of take my chances with certain other things, and just naturally. But I understand that there's other people out there that maybe can't handle something that we could handle, being healthy and being younger, and trying to just listen and get through this as best we can, with that mentality of, all right, things are really bad right now, but it always seems to be ebbs and flows in life, especially for me. So this seems to be a low. I'm just waiting for that high to come back around. I know that as slow and as shut down as things are right now, it's going to be just totally ramped up when everybody finally can be out and together again.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. What's the saying? In every adversity lies a seed of equal or greater benefit. And I know for us, it's been hard to sleep some nights, but it's like we got to focus on that. I love that. I love that.
It's like, where's our seat at? We're looking hard for it.
Honoring it.
But yeah, just because we brought that up, I know one thing I wanted to ask you a little bit more in the fight game, because you're bringing that up, is as far as the psychology in a fight, right? It's hard for you probably not to think any other way because you're in that world. So 17 wins on your professional record. What was maybe a fight that you went into that maybe for a second you didn't think you were going to win for whatever reason, and you did end up winning? What maybe happened there? Have you ever been in that position before?
Oh, all the time. I'm there like every other fight. Because there's so many factors. Fighting is so mental, but full body as well, where there's times I've slept on a guy that I've said, I'm way better than this guy, and then I wind up not doing my due diligence studying what he does on tape, or I wind up maybe not training as hard because I think I got this one in the bag, especially when I was a little younger. And next thing I know, I'm in this middle of this fight and I'm looking at my coach like, how is this guy still here? What is he doing? He's like RoboCop. Like I can't, he just won't go down. But then there's other times where I've felt like the underdog. I've felt like no one thinks I can win this fight. And I've just dominated someone like start to finish. And I think it all comes down to you need to give every opponent you have that type of respect, because if you don't, you're just, and this transfers into business for me as well, then eventually someone's going to make you pay for that, for sleeping on them. And that's the way our world works. That's the way our country works, right? It's the person who's getting up the earliest, who's working the hardest, who has the best vision that's going to succeed. If you don't have all those things, at some point, the wheel's going to come off. You're going to be on the side of the road, so to speak, and they're going to pass you by. So these are things that I learned as I got older fighting, and I'm still trying to be better at implementing. I'm not perfect. Last fight season, when my last loss in the semifinals of that $1 million tournament, I spent all my time studying the other guy that lost his quarterfinal because he had won 16 fights in a row. So in my mind, he was he was the 2 seed. He was gonna win again, and he got upset, and it threw me for a complete loop because I was fighting a foreigner who knew everything about me that I didn't really know a thing about because I'd studied the other man. So I was in there improvising while he had a plan, and you could tell that those two things were butting up against each other,
Sure. And how do you recover from that, Chris? Because I mean, whether it's in a fight or a loss, someone losing in life or business, whatever, how do you mentally kind of come back from that? How do you evaluate that after a fight?
Yeah, well, the first year in 2018 was a split decision loss in that round to go to the $1 million round, and I thought I won that fight, and I still do.
I think you won that fight also.
Last year was just the upset from him, and just the mistake on not doing my studying on him. So it led to a lot of like sleepless nights, and it's led to a lot of contemplation about where I would be had I not made some of these decisions that led to a loss. But like we've been saying, the theme of this is there's only so much time you could spend feeling sorry for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, they never raised me to feel sorry for yourself. It was always like, get up, let's go. All right, you've had your little moment to sulk about this, which is natural.
Yeah.
And let's get going again. Let's get better, and let's make sure this doesn't happen ever again.
what improvements do you feel you've made kind of coming out of those, moving into the next rounds, the next season of Chris Wade's life, you know?
Yeah, well, I think that I was just looking at some real fight-based stuff, saying to myself, so I grew up wrestling. That's what got me into mixed martial arts, the sport of wrestling. And I love the sport of wrestling. It's given me so much from a young age, teaching me discipline. When other kids were young and they were out playing or hanging out with their buddies on the weekend, and I'm sleeping in because my dad's going to drive me 6 hours upstate to get some wrestling matches. Like no kid wants to do that when his friends are all going to go ride bikes the next day when you're 12 years old. But
Yeah.
I don't regret a moment of what we were doing, because it's prepared me for things like this in life, these tough times. I see some people, it's unfortunate, they're panicking or they're really anxiety stricken right now, and I'm for the most part very relaxed. And I think that's a product of where some of the things I've been through with sports. So I almost feel sorry that some of them weren't exposed to adversity, because you could tell they don't know how to handle it. And just circling back to where it's led to me this year as a fighter is, it's led to me doing things like speaking to myself positively, like even though it could be embarrassing, whether that's in the mirror or just aloud, writing things down, like positive affirmations. It's led to me just watching tape on myself and saying, all right, where do I seem to lack? You know, hey, you could be so much better striking on the ground. You know, you're letting these guys kind of hang on to you. You're not hurting them on the ground. So we've been working on ground and pound like crazy. Transitions to hit someone basically as hard as you can from the standing position. But the little things that you feel like you could take, like, all right, I'm already good at this from wrestling, so let's tweak this and become an expert at that, instead of trying to learn some obscure jiu-jitsu submission at 32. It just starting to figure out what plays into my game like a veteran would, instead of trying to do something you see another guy do that may not be in your wheelhouse or your body type's wheelhouse.
Man, that's so powerful, Chris. John Maxwell, he wrote a book, 5 Levels of Leadership, and quite a few different books, and he actually talks about how in order to become a master of your craft, and you just said it, whether you know you kind of mentioned it or not, and he's like, just if you're at an 8 at something because you naturally have that talent and ability, work really hard at becoming a 10, rather than if you're a 3 working really hard at becoming a 6, you know, because then you become a master of that one thing. And you just said that, which is phenomenal, right? Why rebuild the structure? You have the wrestling background, you're really good at something. I mean, most of your matches you've won, right, by submission. So it's like, why send something new? You're good at what you're good at. You have that natural talent and ability because of wrestling. When you get on the floor, you're probably going to end them, you know, so why not stick to that? But
I'm already right here, you know. It's just a matter of putting yourself in those positions. Fighting is a matter just like life. Sometimes it's like just a fractions of an inch determine way different outcomes. So it's there. You just have to believe it's there and find it and see it.
And I love the positivity too, Chris. I mean, you're just like,
well, the
positive,
self-awareness.
Yeah.
I love the self-awareness, because so many people go through life never actually, you know, as you call it, watching your tape, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, just from watching your tape, you develop this skill, and you can tell by listening to you develop this skill to be able to assess your decisions, the way that you behave in a light that most people never learn how to do. So that's incredible. Any advice on that? You know, we're not watching our tapes. You know, I mean, we'll watch this podcast, you know.
but maybe we should. I almost like that analogy where most people should be watching their tape in life to improve, you know, like they are in a fight, you know, like it's cool how you kind of mentioned that. Have you ever put any thought behind that or at all?
Yeah, I mean, it works even in this regard. You know, if you're doing a podcast, you can start to review the podcast and see what you liked about it and what you didn't like about it. I it doesn't always apply step for step like it does in fighting or in wrestling, but sometimes it's close enough that I can make the adjustment. And I think there's a fine line to toe. I'm being self-aware right now, but sometimes I think I'm a little too humble, especially in the fight game. I and again, it's one of those things. I grew up wrestling. Wrestling is a sport where they teach you respect and respect for your opponent. And if you lose, you do it with class and you do it with integrity and you move on. If you win, you do the same thing. You get your hand raised and you run off the mat. You don't rub it in the other guy's face, nothing. The fight game now, on the other hand, the entertainment value, and to keep an adult's attention is a much different thing. So you have to learn some showmanship and some promotional abilities that you wouldn't think would come into play in a sport. So that's something that I'm trying to be. I know maybe I'm a little later in my career right now, but I've tried to be a little better at having a little bit of a rivalry with some of the guys that I'm going to fight, making a story that somebody wants to see the end to. Guys get matched up in fights all the time. There's fights this weekend, but it's those ones that have the really good story tied to it that people are tuning in to see. They might catch your fight and be impressed with you and your performance, but when you add like a whole build up and a story around it, that's what seems to hype a fight and sell a fight. So
that's a great story. And speaking of your story, I mean, for anyone listening or watching, if you just, YouTube Chris Wade, you're going to find some really cool footage. We're actually going to tie some footage into this podcast. You guys can see some of his money moves. But Long Island native, like we said, Long Island business owner and father, and super humble, So really, really cool story. Can you tell us a little bit about being a business owner? I see you rocking
I got the shirt going.
Yeah.
I live Island Strong. Basically, I'm in the gear all the time, almost daily, just walking around in it and posting or training in it. Island Strong came to be though as kind of an aside from my fighting. I created the relationships with my partners now through them having seen me compete on TV. And they were kind of moved by one of my performances in the UFC, and they wanted to do something together. They didn't realize that in meeting with me, they thought I would be maybe like an influencer or just a sponsor. But for some reason, even though my dad or my mom didn't grow up, they weren't entrepreneurs. They had just regular jobs. Something in me since I've been younger, I always saw the businessman or woman doing it themselves as, especially on Long Island, it was kind of the way to get from here to here. Mm-hmm. It was a way I saw, you could make a good living here and get paid and get a check and get, your benefits. But most of the people I saw really doing well for themselves were doing it for themselves and therefore able to keep the lion's share of what they were working for. That just grabbed me at a young age. I'm not sure why, but I remember vividly, like the first time I walked into, which is now, it's funny, like my partners at my MMA gym, because I have the mixed martial arts gym in Islip as well now, Long Island MMA. This is our second location. So the first location is in Farmingdale, and that's where I showed up as a young fighter and met my partners now, Ryan and Greg. I just knew that when I walked in the gym and I saw what they were doing, and it was a real life example for me of how you could take your passion and tie it into business and make a good living doing what you love. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, wait a second, I don't have to like stack beer for the rest of my life because I was working at Budweiser at the time. I can actually like do what I'm good at and people will pay me to to train them. I'm like, nah, I need to be a gym owner one day. And Island Strong was very similar. They came to me with initially around fighting, but the idea was a pride for where we come from, a pride in being a Long Islander, and a loyalty to our island and to our people, and just wanting to help the small businesses here, wanting to be charitable, wanting to promote our local athletes. And as they were talking, it all resonated with me. It was all things that I was like, I'm proud of being from Long Island, and I want to help people. And yeah, I love athletics, and I want to, do as much as we can to help those coming up and those that don't get as much shine as they should. And we've just been churning at it for half a decade now. And here we are.
So cool. And we have to thank you because we've seen that firsthand. We started an event company about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And you guys were just so awesome and so gracious to be a part of that event.
Right now, we have a whole charity collection on our website at lislandstrong.com, and we're donating essentially all of our proceeds, anything that's on the other side of the profit margin, on the other side of cost, we're donating to help local Long Island families. We're literally fielding emails, we're reading through emails, and we're going out and we're attaining gift certificates from small businesses to help the families. So we're trying to create a network right now where we're supporting the closed down or the slow small business, and also the struggling family that has been affected by COVID through illness or through financial hardship or both. And it's made us very busy during this time, but it's well worth it. I mean, just to see one family smile, it's worth all of it.
Wow.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So they can find that right on your website. Is the link also in the bio of your Instagram page for the website?
Yes, it is. It's in the bio of Island Strong's Instagram. I believe it's in my bio still as well, my personal one at just Chris Wade. I think actually it might be Chris Wade MMA. Be nice if I knew my own handle, right?
Chris Wade MMA, yeah.
Awesome.
We got it. We got it. Well, I had no idea. I mean, talk about living the dream. That's really awesome, Chris, that you opened up you're in the world, and now you own your own gym, so you're living in it. And I see, if you follow Chris on his Instagram, him training, helping people train, doing all types of cool things, giving back, really becoming a staple, right, of the community if you don't know who he is, and Island Strong in general, but definitely visit their store. Now, Chris, what I wanted to also ask you, because I know you had texted me about 2 weeks ago when we were originally supposed to do this podcast, and we want to kind of jump into this. For people that don't know Chris's background, he came from the UFC, and now he works with the PFL. And they just canceled their season. I don't know if anything's changed since then. Maybe you kind of shed some light on that.
Yeah, it was a blow to me mentally, big time, because I saw what all the other sports were doing, which was kind of this holding pattern of postponement. They hadn't officially canceled basketball or hockey or Bellator events or UFC events. What they kept doing was postponing. So in my mind, I was going to be looking at a postponement of my first fight, which was supposed to be June 4th in Canada against a guy that I was really looking forward to fighting, because I was supposed to fight him in the UFC. And so this would have been the second time that we were matched up together. And then just kind of out of thin air, like I didn't even have a heads up. I just got a text from a reporter, someone who works as a journalist in MMA, asking me for comment on the cancellation of the PFL season. And I was like, what? Like, this has to be a mistake. And I texted my manager right away. He was like, I'll call you, brother. And I still don't have all the answers as to why the season was just totally canned. And that's, I'll probably never get some of the answers in their truth and totality. But I've, in thinking about it over the last week or two, it's just a lot of factors. Like, I was so close to winning that $1 million 2 times, right? And I try to be smart. I'm trying to be more of an entrepreneur. I don't want to just be punched and kicked in the head my whole life. So fighting is a means to an end for me, especially at my age of 32. So I was only looking to make another like 1 or 2 runs at that PFL $1 million belt. So this just takes my timeline and like totally just tears it up and throws it in the air. It's like someone's just laughing at me right now, and I it took a little while for me to kind of just mentally regroup, a week or two of saying like, this is something that's out of your control. Is I was working hard. We were in quarantine, but I was out running, thinking that I was still gonna fight, even because they're doing events now with no fans. So I was thinking I'm gonna be fighting in an arena with nobody, but that's what I was preparing myself for. And they just went with that full cancellation. And I'm still struggling to grasp some of that. It's an organization that's 2 years in. I think it's important to continue to put yourself out there for those fans and to keep the ball rolling, so to speak. So, I mean, if it was my company, I would have probably tried to postpone things a little bit just to keep those new PFL fans, give them something.
Sure. Yeah.
But you don't know you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on financially or at the corporate level. It could be something that's also out of their control where they had to make this move.
Yeah.
They have a lot of international fighters, and something that people don't see is even when they reopen things here, they're not going to allow international travel or people to come into this country for a while. So I think that maybe they saw that and said, this is going to be an obstacle that we can't climb over. We're not going to be able to sneak people in to compete. And that may have tied their hands to having to cancel until next May, June, essentially.
Wow. What do you think that means overall for maybe the sport? Do you see this impacting or changing anything in the sport, or just mainly postponing it as far as fighters or anything else goes?
Well, the UFC is having an event tomorrow. Dana White has been, for as many issues as I've had with Dana White from the time that I basically was an employee of his, which you can't use that word with the UFC, or an independent contractor.
Yeah.
The man is a very smart businessman. He knows right now that there's no sports on. He has ESPN as his platform. People are clamoring for something to watch and entertain them right now, and he's going to be the only thing on right now. So although some people are angry at him for risking things and not staying home, he's going to benefit the UFC brand tremendously, because he's going to get so many people that normally wouldn't watch a fight to watch a fight right now, because there's just nothing on. And I gotta hats off to him on his business savvy there. I try to call a spade, and when he does something the right way, just applaud him for it. But when he does something wrong to the fighters or something, I'm also there on the internet to say something and take my beating from fans or whoever.
Have you put any thought, and you may not know the answer to this yet, of if the PFL didn't come back, or whatever may happen, or change, what direction you might go into, or I don't know if you're allowed to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll talk about it because I don't care. I'm 32 now. No, I just have a belief for some reason that if I just keep working hard, there's a reason that I'm working on these things and that I'm doing it. I truly believe that opportunities, or an opportunity, will present itself, whether it's later in the year, maybe in the fall. I think just being ready and there's a need out there right now. Like I said to you, there's a lot of organizations that can't get international fighters into the country. And there's a lot of events later in the year that will probably need to be filled. And with the PFL having shut the doors for a year, being an independent contractor, it's just time to keep myself prepared and to try to seize an opportunity that may present itself. Maybe it won't, maybe I will be forced to wait a year and see where they're at next year. But maybe, God willing, something will pop up in the fall and I'll be available because of this. And it will maybe be my last stop on the MMA train.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that, because I know that a lot of times it's hard. People look up to you. They see, your lifestyle and everything that they don't see the work, right? People are like, oh, overnight success. Obviously, you're not an overnight success. A lot of training, a lot of tenacity, a lot of discipline. And a lot of times it's hard for people to see, like, wow, like, you're not perfect. You struggle. There's things that you go through. And right now you're definitely going through something, to work so hard, to be so let down. Is there any, advice that maybe, and I know we're kind of coming to an end close here. Is there any advice you can give to people who have seen, a lot of what they've been working towards kind of shatter right in front of them? A lot of business owners, unfortunately won't be able to open back up. Their businesses won't survive coronavirus. And, a lot of people are laid off right now, and people are struggling. Is there any advice that you can give?
Yeah, I mean, I just want them to know that I'm in the same boat with them. We're all bailing right now, so to speak. The sinking ship. It's everyone together. There's very few people unaffected by this. I mean, look, I was making good money doing what I did, but I just lost my whole year's salary in the blink of an eye, like that, on the main thing that I do. And on top of that, both of my businesses that are storefronts are shut and have been for over a month. So I just want them to know that I'm in that boat with them, and that if they can see me still on social media or wherever being positive, I'm still working out. I'm still trying to take care of my body and myself. I'm still doing things related to my business right now, even though the doors are shut, trying to make them better, trying to acquire new deals, new collaborations. Just, there's opportunity always in everything. So just because we're shut down here, it doesn't mean you can't get going on something else. Maybe for people that were not business people, maybe this is the time for them to think out their business plan and to implement something when the time comes again to open back up. Or maybe for someone who's closing down, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe this would have been drug out over 4 or 5 years and cost you some of your prime, where you can reset your focus on something new, something that you've been meaning to switch to or to just focus on. You gotta find the half full mentality somewhere. It's okay to, like I said before, to have your moments of being down, but you just can't let yourself sink too deep into that and let it eat you up, because it will.
That's powerful. Powerful message from Chris. Chris, before we let you go, because I know we're on a strict time frame here, I want to be respectful of your time. Number one rematch that you would like to have, and we'll end it with this.
Listen, it's Natan Schultz, who is the 2-time PFL lightweight champion now. He was my first fight coming out of the UFC into the PFL, and he beat me solid in a regular season bout. And then, like I said, I feel like I beat him in that semifinal, and the judges I don't know. They gave him a split decision that led to him being a millionaire, and I just have wanted to put my hands on him ever since, just to prove, just to make it right. You know, it just doesn't feel right.
Why did this not go your way tonight?
Let me tell you something, all right? This is one of the things that's wrong with this sport, okay? Is that you leave it in the hands of 3 people who don't know what's going on, all right? I pummeled him. I sat in the middle and I pummeled him, okay? And that was for $1 million. And I just had 3 people that have no idea what's going on take that money from me and from my family.
I don't know. I hope one day me and him can cross paths again. Maybe we will. For the entirety of last year, I really thought he and I were going to see each other again, and I just didn't live up to my end of the bargain with that semifinal match, and he did. So last year, it's just tip my hat to him for doing what he needed to. But maybe we'll see each other again. That would be nice.
Well, that's that great story you're talking about, right, Chris? Talking about the rivalries. That is an awesome story. I hope to see that fight as well. And Chris, I mean, thanks for being on the show. Make sure to visit him on his Instagram at Chris Wade MMA and follow him. He's got a great story on there. And make sure to visit him at Island Strong. You know, support the community, guys. Support what they're doing there. They're doing things, good things. They're giving back to the community. And just support all your local businesses, guys. So
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never stop.